All right, good afternoon. It's May 21st, 2025, 2:01 p.m. We are meeting with ATU ECAT for wage negotiations. My name is Nikki Powell, HR Director.
Thaddeus Davenport, Inland Mass Transit Director.
Wesley Hall, Assistant County Administrator.
Lincoln McDonald, HR Specialist.
Mike Lowry, ATU 1395.
Mr. DeWitt Stallworth, Vice President, ATU, United States Marine Corps. Hoorah.
And Kristen Gould with the County Attorney's Office.
So Nikki, when we last finished, you guys kind of gave us two proposals verbally. Before I respond to that, I was curious, did you have any other proposal you wanted to add into this, or?
So, I was actually going to draft a proposal based on one of those options. I've been just this week, I guess. Budget is still a moving target,
Mhm.
but it does seem to be moving a little tiny bit more positively. Unfortunately, that means I don't have anything today, but what it does mean is there may be something we can do down the road, because if I say, okay, we have the 2% built in, this is the offer, we sign that, but then the county gives 3%, 4%, we come back to the table. So after talking with budget, what they have told me is after the July 10th meeting, that is when our preliminary budget will be approved by the board. After the preliminary budget is approved, they'll be able to give me a final number.
Okay. Okay. So let me kind of recap the two that you proposed to me and tell you what we thought.
Okay.
Okay. So that if my notes were correct that I looked over, the one proposal, the first one you said was a 4% for 4% for anyone 20 plus years, and 2% for anyone that's 10 to 19 years, and then you said a 1% for anyone that was a new hire up to 9 years. That was the first proposal. The second proposal you proposed, I wrote it all down. The second proposal you gave us was a 2% across the board, and then a 2% adjustment, and this is where I was confused with what my notes said, of the progression,
The
but I
table
wasn't
for
sure.
Table for the operators, just with bus operators, right?
For just bus operators.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think it was about an additional 2% for
Right.
bus operators.
So let me start with saying, let's just make sure we got these positions all covered, we all know what we're talking about here to make sure. Because the bargaining unit obviously is on the operations side is bus operators. It is trolley operators, which include UWF and the beach, right? Okay. And then you have building and grounds, or building, however they want to refer to their titles. There are two individuals that kind of maintain bus stops and maintain the building and all that. There's two individuals there. And then you have in the maintenance department, you have the technicians, which classify from master all the way down to technician 1, right? And you have fuelers, or I don't know if you call them utility or fuelers, but they're the same thing. Utility, okay? And then you have, and I think you include cleaners as a utility as well, even though One does cleaning the buses, some of the others do the cleaning, the fueling at night, and checking oil and all that, correct?
Utility.
Yeah.
they all have
But they're
some-
different pay, I think, correct? They're not different pay? You sure? Between a cleaner and a individual that fuels the bus?
I will confirm.
But there's a progression there for that position. This is why I'm bringing this up. I want to make sure we understand. It's like some kind of little progression for them, and it's in the MOU for the progression. It's not a 5-year progression like the drivers, it's a shorter progression for them, if I'm not mistaken. So just wanted to note that, okay? Am I forgetting anyone else or any other position that's in the bargaining unit at the present time?
I don't think you mentioned Glee.
Customer service.
Oh, customer service, yep. Customer service, that's correct. Shouldn't forget them, they approached us today. Anyways, so when hearing those proposals out of the two, we gravitated towards the first proposal more than the second proposal, but we also wanted to say to you that we felt, depending on when you get your preliminary budget numbers, that first of all, we kind of figured what your thought process of the 1% between starting to 9 years was more geared towards the fact that new hires have a 5-year progression and they have a built-in wage increase based on their anniversary, correct? We thought maybe that was your thought process of why you offered such a low number of 1%. But we were concerned about a 6-year employee to a 9-year employee, that, they shouldn't have been included in that little 1% group, we felt, okay? So we were, right off the bat, if we were going to agree, we're not saying we're there yet, but if we were to agree to that 2%, we would think, because I looked at the numbers, it's a small group of people, not very many people in that 6 to 9 years that should have been included in that type of proposal, right? So it would justify, when we went to ratification vote, the questions that would be hitting us, asking us, why did you agree to a 1% all the way up to 9 years of service, when, it's a little easier to say to someone that's in the 5-year progression, well, the reason we agreed to 1% for you is because you have built-in progression that you're gonna, based on your years of service, you're gonna get 2 raises a year type thing, right? While everyone else is getting 1 raise, while you progress through the wage progression. But I will say that our thought process was more of a 3% would have been better and more, I ran the
I'll
number.
stop you real quick and tell you exactly how I came up with that amount.
Yeah.
Is this is what 2% that's budgeted will cost,
Mhm,
and then I finagled everything kind of backwards
mhm,
to give essentially 20+ year employees
mhm.
the most, right? Okay, what does that look like? Okay, 4%, that's a good number. Then the
Mhm.
2% and then the 1%. So it wasn't really a hard and fast, it was what did you guys propose previously? I took what you proposed previously.
Right.
And then I had the small dollar figure that I'm working with and trying to apply it to your entire unit.
You said it, the small dollar number. I ran the numbers and of every bargaining unit employee. And, because you provide that information to us, and I ran the numbers looking at it on a 2,080 hour, being full-time. Didn't really calculate in like trolley drivers or part-time type, the beach trolley people. But it was in the $55,000 range, I think is what it was, that the cost was. And a little disappointed to see that number, because we thought that was a low number. It's a little lower what I've seen in the past over years of negotiations with the county or with the private sector. We thought that for an entire bargaining unit. We thought that was kind of a low number. We really lean towards, but going back to the original session one, yes, the ATU wanted to see some kind of, what's the word I want to say? Acknowledgement of individuals that have given time and service and dedicated their careers to the transit system. So yes, that's why we offered the very first proposal we gave across to you was with a, I'm being careful calling it longevity or a time and service type thing to award those individuals that have been there a long time. So when you counted with 4% to us, while we were kind of happy about as far as saying it would be 2% more than what others would get, or 3% more. And we thought that was important to separate the people. There's only 12 individuals that have 20 or more years of service, only 12. And so it's a small number too, 12 individuals. So I just want to say that I want to kind of back up and then go back to something that, go on the record and say this. When we negotiated this full contract and signed off on a full contract, a 3-year contract, a lot of things changed in that contract that we had never seen before. A lot of things taken out of that contract. And yes, as Mr. Kimbrough used to say, it was his personal opinion was it was an employee-driven union CBA versus, where he could not manage the system is what he used to say, which I used to find kind of silly to hear him say that, but he said it. We agreed to 2 wage reopeners. And again, yes, last year you gave a 3% across the board to all county employees. But I just want to go on record. I know what your position is. You said it last time in session 2. But I think it's important, just in case somebody listens to these tapes, which I encourage my members to listen to all the recordings, is that, we feel that we came in good faith for the first wage reopener, and we acknowledge that you needed some time, and we agreed to wait till April, which was, last March, April, a month or so ago, and then it was kind of presented to us that is no longer the wage reopener, that you're discussing the next wage reopener.
Well,
And you're discussing the fall, which is
and
our,
to clarify, that was your wage reopener, but there was no additional funding. Mr. Kimbrough did request some time to review the budget, look at the budget to see if there was anything that we could do. When we came back in April, this year has been tight and there was no money, and that essentially a wage opener is, we discuss, but if there's nothing in the budget, it's based on funds available.
so,
And there were none. So at that time, we said we need to make sure we discuss ahead of time next year so that we are bargaining whatever is budgeted appropriately.
so I hear you, but I also add to that comment that a wage reopener is something that, when you offered the 3%, it wasn't said, hey, this is what there is. When we come to the table, there's nothing else. We would have said, well, let's go to the table. You have a 3% budgeted, we might want to adjust that 3% and run it a different way.
Honestly, we did not know that at the time.
So,
Mr. Kimbrough was,
yes.
we were
Well,
working on something.
it was told
and
to
he
us
thought
it was told to us that 3% was for all county employees. You'll still have your wage reopener. Come to the table, we'll discuss any other increase beyond that. And that's why the union brought, where our real focus was the addressing time and service. Yes, we asked for a wage increase for everybody, but our goal was the time and service to address that. So I hope in the future, instead of just saying, here's 3%, sign it, or you're not gonna be on the agenda, that you'll notify us, we'll sit down, we'll discuss it,
That's why we're discussing now.
I know.
For next year, this will be, you know, whatever
For
what's being
for October,
budgeted this
right.
year for October.
For October.
So that we don't,
Right. So, because that was a little difficult to explain to our members that, because they didn't quite understand that. But we had to explain it to them. They understood. So, we hear you about July. We hate to push it out even further and have further discussions, but obviously that sounds like that is your intent, you know, to wait and see. But we
I
want you
think
to
it
hear.
would be a more positive outcome if we wait.
So we want to make sure you understand where we're coming from as far as what we're hoping to achieve here, okay? And that is to say, so I'm gonna kind of break it down to you, the whole scenario. I've thought this through and I want to make sure I get it on the record. So if you want to go back and listen to it when you guys get your time and think about what I'm about to say. So you have something that we've never seen until we became county employees. We had a wage progression, right, in the private sector. And that wage progression was negotiated, and there'd be a wage increase negotiated of, for instance, let's just use a number and say 3%. That 3% was applied to every step of that wage progression. But that is not what we've seen with the county. What we've seen with the county is, as of like last year, we offer 3%. It's for existing employees only. It's not applied to the wage progression. So that starts to build this gap, okay? And if that's where the direction we're going, then the union's position is okay, well, let's start recognizing that means we're going a different direction. And that means in our eyes, we're recognizing years of service. We're recognizing people that stay. But we also find it difficult to understand that when you have a wage progression, how you're going to maintain people walking in the door and keep them there. Because if I walk in the door and I can't see the end of where I'm going to be, right, I'm not staying. And so I really think that, number one, the county should be looking at that progression and thinking about how it applies to existing wages of individuals that are there. Because potentially you could have a 5-year employee and an employee that built themselves up to a 3-year, 4-year employee, and there's such a gap between them, it's kind of ridiculous, you know, because of the progression wasn't addressed, okay? And, you know, I think so you've been able, Mr. Davenport, you've been able to hire a few new people. But you and I both know something that maybe others don't know in this room, which is this. Until they dedicate that time and they stay, and you can really see them staying, it doesn't mean they're gonna stay. Because we've seen people go through training, and then you've seen them just 3 months into the process, walk out the door. And not even give you notice, because they found some other job somewhere or whatever, right? And you've got to be able to pay people to walk in the door and just not say it's all about benefits, because you have so much competition going on out there right now for a CDL driver. You know, some are, and another thing I want to mention to you is something we talk about customer service, and a couple other people that have approached us, is there was a time when Mr. Kimbrough talked about a CDL program for transit. For someone internally, or for you to hire outside, for them to go into a CDL program. We haven't seen it.
Still working on it.
And we did have 2 successful candidates to go through that same program as well. 2 maintenance personnel went through that program that we spoke of.
Oh, the one at PJC
Yes.
or PSC, I mean.
I don't know, yes.
And but we just lost a maintenance employee, or we are losing a maintenance employee, which is kind of rough. You know, you hate to see technicians leave, and so I think it's important that, I don't know about how to say this other than I can go back in time, 30 years before when I walked in the door. It was kind of like I could see the end, because the progression was put in front of me, by the union president, Ken Edgerton at the time, and these are the steps, this is when you get the top pay, then we negotiate raises and you get the raise and you move along with everyone else, okay? So that was simple to follow, and it was like, okay, I could see myself getting a raise and moving up, but I'm moving up with everyone else, and we're all kind of treated the same. But I think the county has a different theory because you like to, recognize those that stay a little first time in service, and I'm all for that. So I believe we're thinking that a larger increase for the 20+ years, just to start the gap of showing where they're at. But then we believe that the 10 to 19 years should receive a substantial increases as well as maybe not 4, but maybe a 3. And we're thinking that anything less than 9 years less should be getting a 2%. But we also think that you should be adjusting the progression as it stands right now. And trying to see if you can get that closer to where wages are now. As far as where you can get it more back in line. So you don't create this big gap. That might cause
So you're-
a huge increase for some people.
To be honest with you, you're not the only union who's requested this. I think moving towards something like that, as long as we can keep it within the confines of what has been approved by budget,
Mhm.
the only thing that you have to keep in mind is those type of tables do come with a recurring cost.
Mhm.
So there's always that recurring cost of knowing that person's moving to the next level, that person's moving to the next level. So it's not just the implementation cost of this is a one-time cost, this is what it's gonna cost to pay the employees, it's a recurring cost. So when I cost this out for budget, I usually do a 3-year analysis. If I do anything like what you're requesting, I usually do a 3-year analysis for them.
Right.
I
When you
don't-
say recurring, you're referring to those that would get that step.
Right, if you go from 19 to 20 years and we bump you up another 3% or something, that could be significant to the budget,
Mhm.
that we did an implementation cost. You're
Right.
gonna make sure you're capturing those recurring costs.
Well, the sell that we're looking at is to be able, as in the union meeting with all the members sitting there, is to be able to say to them, stay with the job and look where it gets you.
No, and I agree.
You know-
I'm not disagreeing. That's what I'm saying. I think what you're saying has merit.
Yeah.
As long as I can do it within the confines of the budget.
Right. We just think that 1882 to start is problematic. We think that's,
Problem is when you are trying to get those top wages up, the bottom wages suffer.
yeah, but we
So
don't want to compress
Which
too
one
much.
do you want?
Yeah.
You gotta go one or the other. I either start at the top and work down, or I start at the bottom and work up. So, that's,
We think you're caught in a position where you got to do both.
it depends on how
that's what
much
we think.
I have for budget.
We think that what the county has done with the way you've given out raises and the way the progression has been kind of ignored.
What starting pay did we look at last time?
What you offered?
Yeah.
Well, in the first proposal, you didn't offer any increase to the progression.
Correct, but on the
Which
second
caught us off
proposal-
guard. But the second proposal, you offered a 2% on top of 1882.
19, no.
I think it brought it to 1976.
76.
Thank you, Lincoln.
At least, yeah.
Somebody took good notes.
I have it too, I just wanted you to call it out.
It's like I had it somewhere myself.
I still think 1976 is problematic. That's just from our perspective. Just seeing the industry and seeing individuals applying to these jobs and sticking out these jobs. Look, Nikki, Mr. Hall, and Lincoln, and even Kristen, that aren't there at ECAT. ECAT is a different animal than many transit systems, okay? it is a different animal. There's a lot expected from employee workers there that generally, you know, and we hear that from experienced people that come and apply and come to work with us. They're like, wow. Or we talk to other individuals at other transit agencies. We have one that worked at ECAT, now he works at Lynx. You know what I'm talking about, Mr. Davenport? He came in, they don't even do pre-trips. The individuals don't even do, they have others that do pre-trips for them. They don't do brake checks. They don't do things that we do on a daily basis. And the other part that I think is important to talk about, because this all plays into why we think we deserve where we're at with wages. Our transit system, you know, I had to be careful because Mr. Kimbrough is no longer with us, and if he were here, I'd say it and kind of challenge him to the discussion, but he would often say we're going to be an award-winning transit system. And I would sit here and kind of grit my teeth every time he'd say that. Because you can say that publicly, but the reality is that the transit system, the people doing the work, are sitting there going, sure doesn't feel like it, because our equipment is in pretty bad shape. Bad shape. Today I drove around with a bus with a check engine light and AC stop on there. And I got maintenance saying, the air's still working? Yep, keep going. So the point that I'm making, and we'll go with it, and
When it rains, we drive buses now, when it rains, you get soaking wet.
there's some buses that water.
Some
and
buses
stuff.
like that, and you
But-
cannot have a piece of paper towel, Mr. Davenport.
Taped up on the roof.
with some duct tape. And you driving and it's raining on you. You get on the bus in the morning, so when it rains at night, Miss Nick, and guess what happens? You get on the bus, there goes, the whole seat is wet.
Soaking wet. You said
Soaking wet, wet.
we're used to reaching down and touching the seat before we sit into it. See,
All right, so,
the-
we all face
hold on.
operational challenges, but.
well, let me finish. I know this is, but this is stuff that needs to be said sometimes, and it's being recorded, and I think it's important to say it, because this is why we're asking for more wages. Because we're, you know, we have a Passio system that hasn't really worked correctly from the day it's been put in. And Mr. Davenport, you know it. And I'm thinking, when they, on the back of the bus, it has that waste, fraud, whatever, you know, the little language on there, and I'm thinking, there's some waste right there in that Passio. The only thing it does is it tracks us. It tells us where we're at, right? It tells where we're at, but it doesn't do what it was meant to do, which was enunciation of the stops. So we're a transit system, unlike other transit systems, where we're still in the dinosaur age, where we're calling out stops for ADA.
Flintstone age.
Right?
That Flintstone.
The Flintstone age. We're calling out stops verbally. You know, and you know, all the other transit systems, all they do is drive.
Mr. Davenport
Focus.
knows what we're talking about. I was in DC a week and a half ago, and that's just, no one uses cash. Why do people still have to use cash? And it's nothing but an
Money
argument.
in the little old Escambia County, so.
What you say?
She said DC is a lot more.
I'm just saying, no one who uses cash. Everybody uses the tap system with their phone, you know, or their debit card. Well, and you don't do nothing but causes arguments. Some of the biggest arguments is these passengers want to fight and everything. What you
fares.
mean? I can't pay. Or you get this lady, we got one lady gets on with 175 pennies in traffic and just stop and do this. Drop one in at a time. One
They
in.
have to have her put it in slow because of the jam, otherwise.
Mr. Lowry.
So who uses
So,
cash?
so the point is, and then our buses
They need-
are not as attractive as they should be.
they need-
They're not maintained in the sense where they're repaired from accidents. You know, we put this if I were paying for advertising on that bus and my picture was peeling off the side of the bus, I'd be pretty angry that I was paying for that advertising. These are things, we used to have a paint and body guy that used to fix all that. We don't have that anymore. But we got a lot of positions up front. We got a lot of positions, people that do jobs, you know, back in the day, We had a general manager, a finance director, and we had a woman named Roberta.
That's
And
right.
Roberta did everything. She ran the show. She was the aide, if you will, but she did everything. And we had a marketing person, and that's it. But we didn't have all these other individuals, you know? So I guess I don't know how, I met with a commissioner. I don't know if you know. I met with a commissioner. The only part that I'm gonna say to you is this. I was shocked to know what she didn't know. I was shocked to know what she didn't understand about the transit system. And I'm thinking, you're a county commissioner and you're voting on issues that affect the transit system and you don't know the details? Somebody should be briefing her a little better about those details, okay? You know, her and I talked about microtransit, which, by the way, I applaud, great job. I feel like the microtransit has been professionally run by Mr. Davenport and Mr. Rashad and their team. They have nice vehicles, so we're a little jealous of that part. But we can't figure out why their vehicles are started up in the morning, our buses are still not started up, but we can't quite figure that out, but that's another story. But they, you know, I just feel that we do a lot of things in our transit system, the bus operators, the maintenance. I feel for the technicians. These guys are constantly having to just put Band-Aids on things because it's like a rotating door every day. Buses being pulled off the road, buses, you know, being held for all. They have to keep checking things. You know, the lights are on, and it's just. So I always wonder, when are we going to get our next buses? And the last thing I heard was, this is what the commissioner said. Well, I think when you get your new building, you're getting some electric buses. We can't wait that long. You know, we need updated transit buses.
So I know, you know, you're saying things, you want them on the record, but this is a wage discussion. I'm HR, I'm not operations.
Well,
So trying to get back to the wages and
I'm
understand
just
you're
pointing
saying
out to
these
you
things
I'm
to-
pointing out to you that drivers are driving buses that are unsafe.
And we understand, but we gotta stay with the wage ordinance. Let's stay at.
That is part of, Mr. Hall, no disrespect, sir. No,
but-
definitely no disrespect.
Yeah.
I'm pointing out the challenges of what a bus operator has to
I'm
face.
telling you where we gotta, the parameters we gotta stay in today.
So,
I've talked with a number of people, I know the situation about the bus.
So we're supposed to still drive unsafe buses? That's
We're
what,
doing everything we can. to get
that's what
the
it's boiling
situation
down
right.
to.
We're doing
The past 2 weeks have
everything.
been horrendous, just so you
But
know.
we need, I understand that, but I'm saying let's stay where we are with the wage ordinance. And deal with that situation.
Mr. Hall, can I say this? The point I'm making about wages is what I make as a professional operator versus what another operator in the same state of Florida is making that doesn't have the challenges we do every single day. I'm sitting here like this morning with almost 60 passengers standing on my bus, packed up to the door. And I'm driving a bus that has stop AC, check engine, you know what I'm saying? And all I'm thinking to myself is, and I'm being told, be careful, just do your best. And you're driving down the road, and I've got 60 souls almost on my bus. And I'm thinking, what if that bus does something I don't expect it to do? Because it's got problems, you know? So I feel I should be compensated for that. I really do. I feel like I've been put in a situation that a normal bus operator doesn't face. A normal bus operator doesn't sit there and drive a bus that has the issues we have at ECAP. And so that's the point, Mr. Hall. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, sir.
So what the union would like to see is a larger increase for the 20-plus year employees, a larger increase for all, basically, is what you said. Larger increase for 20-plus years, larger increase for 10 to 19, a larger increase for 0 to 9 years.
What I'd really like to see, and so, because I thought about it after I said it, I thought, oh, we kind of screwed that up, is a 2% for that 0 to 5 years because they're getting that progression to two increases, okay? But 6-year, sorry,
Mhm.
6-year on would get the 3%. That's what we're saying.
19.
And I kind of screwed that up, and that's my apologies. When I said it, I realized it, and then I lost track of it. So,
And that's why I'm just, you know.
so
I
there's a
can-
challenge of finding this money, and I know that. But somehow something has to be looked at. And I guess, you know, we're hoping, I feel we do an amazing job at ECAT. I feel like the employees are, under the circumstances, are unbelievable in 99 out of 100 cases, right? They are doing amazing work with what the situation has put in front of us. One of the things the commissioner said to me was, Microtrans is gonna replace those big buses, is what I was told. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. Then someone is not doing their homework and riding these buses. I work a ton of overtime. I really do. You can check my record. I work a lot of overtime. So I drive a lot of different routes. My regular route, I transport a ton of military. Yesterday I drove Route 55, Mr. Davenport, 2 trips. The one trip, filled up the bus, second trip, people were standing, right? The day before I drove Route 50. Route 50 going out to Ensley, out to, Lincoln Park, bus was packed. I don't understand anyone that says these buses are empty. You and I know as a transit person that, yeah, I could be outbound and pick up a ton of people and come inbound and not have as many, right? Or vice versa. So when people think that there are a bunch of empty buses, maybe we should rip all the advertising off these buses and let these buses so you can see inside of them. because those statements aren't true. Our ridership is there, and all you gotta do is come ride. And that's what, like I told her, come ride. You'll see it for yourself. And I think that we might be Pensacola, Florida, but our transit system, under the circumstances that have been given to us, we are performing. There's always one or two individuals that make mistakes or whatever, but overall, people are working a lot, and people are, I feel bad for the maintenance department because they're a normal maintenance department has time to do what do they call it when they do their preventative maintenance on each bus. They have time to. Yesterday, they were like, well, let's pull that bus out of the garage and give that bus to that person, even though we're due to do a preventative, whatever they call that, the PM, and you're like, what? They got to pull buses out of garages. So it's time that has to be said to whoever's doing the budget, whoever is, getting all the way up to the commissioners to be educated. Because if they're not going to be educated by management, I'm going to educate them, because I'm going to start inviting them to come ride our bus system. I'm going to get that chairman to come ride that Navy bus and let him see all those sailors where he has to jam in there and be like this close to all their faces, because that's how many of them are on the bus. So he can know that we're doing our job and we're doing it well. It's a lot of responsibility, whether people realize it or not, because people are unsafe on the road, and we're driving around with a 40,000-pound vehicle and then put 60 lives on there. It's unbelievable. And a little scary to new hires too, by the way. New hires get hired in, they start to see these things, and some are like, for $18.82 an hour, I'm out of here. But I hope some of the new ones will stay. We had a couple good ones. One last thing. When you have a job opening, do me one favor. Interview everybody, even if they're internal. Just give them a shot. Just let them have an interview. Even if you're not going to give them the job, at least interview them so they don't feel insulted.
Mr. Myra, I follow HR policies and procedures.
I understand
How
that.
to interview and select them.
Just give them a chance. Just let them interview. They feel like they're, so they don't come to me.
Not all internal candidates get referred, So
Well, I have to
they're
break the news to them.
qualified.
I have to
get
break
referred.
I have to break the news to them when they come to me. I didn't even get an interview, and tell them, well, you're sorry, but you're interviewing for a non-bargaining position, so it's not my duty. Well, I need you to say something. What, I'm lobbying for you to get out of the bargaining unit. Okay, I got it. So I know this.
I've got some notes, and I can, hopefully continue to hear from budget, and, last week was not a good week, this week is a positive week, so I'm hoping that we continue to move positively, and
At the budget hearings, is Mr. Davenport, you speak up, right? You get to go up in front of the podium and say some things sometimes?
it's only if you're called up.
Only if you're called up? Okay. Oh, one other thing. We're sitting here, and I'll be the first one to say ITL. I can't even get a raise out of them, those are workers, so just bring it in-house. I've had enough of this. I gotta have these employees that are protecting their own 13th seat come over to Flex Transit, and then you all bring it in-house, so these employees can be treated with some respect,
That's above my pay grade, but.
because it's frustrating. It's frustrating not to see these individuals being treated with some dignity, but I know that's not what you want to hear in a wage reel, but I'm on the record, that way they can't know that I'm not saying it, because I am saying it. They said, well, say it. I said, I will. It's frustrating, it's been 2 years, they haven't got a raise. So, anyways, I just want to mention this too. You're losing utility individuals because your wages are way too low. Is that like $15 an hour, 15 and change? The starting pay?
I just closed
You
my-
lost a
I just
real good
closed my
employee.
contract.
And you lost because, and he told me before he left, it was because the wages were so bad.
Okay.
No, it was he was really doing cleaning work mostly. He was mostly doing cleaning work.
I'm a new guy. Right?
No, that guy's still there. Oh, he
Oh,
did
I
say to
Well,
me,
he
this
said-
is really rough. This is really
Yeah.
low wages. We can't assume that benefits are gonna keep people anymore.
No.
Just to
I
be honest.
don't disagree with you, I just, I have to work within the confines of.
People gotta
what
put
the
food in the
budget is.
refrigerator and pay bills.
Oh, I-
That's their first priority. Yes, benefits are wonderful, and I will be the first to always promote the county's benefits.
Yeah.
I always say that the health insurance, even though in my situation, I'm getting a lot of co-pays coming in from my doctor bills, but that's part of that out of pocket that you gotta pay. A little discouraging, but overall, the health insurance is wonderful, affordable, and I have no issue with your top plan and your second plan there. I think they're great. And state retirement, everybody, should be happy to have state retirement. And overall, your paid holidays and everything's nothing to complain about there. Wages is your big issue, and that's what you're struggling with.
Across the county, it's not just with the union, but it's absolutely across the county.
Oh, I know. I totally know and understand that. And trust me, the firefighters, I know. And deservedly. But I'm here to fight for the transit workers.
Absolutely understood.
But I'm not just fighting, I want to make sure we're clear on this. I'm not just fighting for people in the beginning to get in the door, which I am. I'm fighting for every single person in between, all the way to the top.
Recruitment and retention, got it.
Well, you gotta respect the people that have been there a long time, and why they're still there. I'm still waiting for him and I are still waiting for our million-mile recognition. Mr. Davenport.
No,
Oh, what'd you say?
Everybody says,
Is it coming?
A million
No.
miles.
Million miles.
Longevity, is a bad word, but I'd love to see the county reinstate it, but it would cost,
Mhm.
a lot of money.
So you don't
to
call
do
it longevity, you call it
across
what we're
the
doing.
county.
We do what
We
we're
have to
saying,
do
which is
it
give a larger
within
increase.
the confines of each individual budget.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, when I make this proposal across the table to you about the 4-3-2, right? I'm not saying that that would be a continuous thing. I'm trying to just show a gap. And that gap would be there for people that have got time and service. Because I'm also trying to help you. Because
Yeah.
next year is a big moment in April 2026 at ECAT, and Mr. Davenport knows it. That's when all the employees at ECAT are vested under the little 8-year thing. And a lot of us there's some that are under that social security age, but they're or just right at it at 62, and they're going, should I leave, should I stay, you know? And I'm trying to encourage people to say, stay a little longer, stay to about 67, you know, build up that state retirement. Huh?
You're so scary.
Well, get your full social security and
Is it gonna be in the
and your
Social
state
Security?
retirement be a little bit bigger.
Is it gonna be in the Social Security?
Well, I don't know. That part I don't know. I read AARP, and they say it's going to be there until the end of this century, and then it could be problematic.
Well, no, we are scheduled till 3:30, but I have a commitment that came up at 3, so I'm gonna try to wrap this up.
Okay, I see. Well, I saw Kristen Hill got bored with it.
She must have had to drop off as well.
So,
Um,
what is the plan?
so I'll set something up for towards the end of July.
End of July.
You know, we'll have July 10th. I've got plenty of time to get that scheduled and advertised. I would say mid to late July, not all the way to the end, but, you know, somewhere maybe around the 20th. That gives me about 10 days after I know what is approved, I know what number I'm working with, I can run some numbers, it won't take me long to run the numbers, but we'll go ahead and have to get the session scheduled.
Yeah.
So it's on the books, and come back and, you know, if something comes up in between and you just have a question or a thought and you wanna share it, that's okay.
Yep.
You can give me a call and I can add it to my notes.
Yeah,
It
you can.
obviously wouldn't be on the record, but
ECAT needs to be added into the
Happy to
general
have
fund
some.
a little bit. Just a portion of the general fund.
John has no money, so let's not go there.
Just throw some more money.
Yeah, so we'll.
Nikki, when's the last time you rode a bus?
Yeah.
In Pensacola, in Escambia County. Come on.
Does the beach count?
No, it does not. I'm talking about, you gotta get in the roots of the
Yeah.
transit system.
Yeah.
You don't want.
Y'all, welcome to come ride. Come ride. Let Mr. Davenport know. He'll put you on a bus.
You don't know.
You might not like everybody that's on the bus, but
There you go.
there'll be some that'll be good though, you know. So, okay, so end of July. I got you. I got you.
And I'll probably get that out by the end of this week to you. That way
Okay.
it's on the books.
All right. That's it. You can shut her down. Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank you.
guys, thanks for letting us get out a little early.
I know I'm frustrating Mr. Hall sometimes, but I'm just advocating for the workers.